Hi, I'm Lynda, as Alex just said, and I really appreciate being here in Galerie Myrtis, and I just feel so honored to be represented by Myrtis, who's just an extraordinary human being, one of the most that I've met in my life. So since I was a child, I made things. I was born and raised in Colombia, South America, in the Andes. I used my imagination to create toys because when I grew up, there was no TV. It was way up in the Andes, and my parents happened to be missionaries, and so we were living in Indian villages. So after I came back from South America, which was a junior in high school, I came to the United States. I attended Hunter College in New York City, where I majored in sculpture. The wood shop became my home. My first job after college was teaching woodworking in the Catskills to inner city children from New York City for a week-long nature program. I researched lore and poetry of the surrounding trees. I set up workstations around the shop to experience the various properties of wood. In fact, the kids would go back with a turned baseball bat from one of the trees out in front of the shop. And so it was just this fantastic multi-sensory program I developed for the kids. Given all this work, I thought I should get a master's degree. I discovered the museum education program at Bank Street College. Trees were my museum collection. I went on, and then I went on to direct the small children's museum and progressed in exhibition projects in the Smithsonian and the Library of Congress. So the next few shots are sculptures made with my bandsaw. And this is my bandsaw, and that's a very, very important tool in my work. I slice branches, and then I reconfigure them into a sculpture. And that's my first approach to wood art. So that piece was done on my bandsaw. A lot of my pieces were done and sliced on a bandsaw. Let's see. Okay, this is called Epiphany, and then I changed it to the Phoenix Rising. But this was a dogwood, the crotch of a dogwood branch that I sliced, and there was like birds inside when I book matched those pieces, black walnut branch. And I just found, it's like I just opened up the wood and I found the texture just absolutely beautiful. And then I try to leave some of the bark on so the interior and the exterior are revealed. I say I undress trees. This is the beckoning. This is a dogwood branch that I've sliced on the bandsaw, and then I reconfigured it. And my work takes a long time because I do a certain amount, and then I don't know where else to go with it. And finally, I guess maybe a year later, I bumped into my piece of black walnut, and I thought, okay, I'll do stairs. So that way it's called beckoning. And this is a boxwood branch that I sliced on my bandsaw. The black walnut base, I'd like to try to emphasize nature. I try to have nature be at the eye level of people so that natural form people are confronted with that. Wow, what's that? Is that nature? And then I try to lift up that natural form with black walnut, which to me is a very finely finished tree wood. It's very kind of a precious wood. Okay, so then this is not sliced. So let me just go to my mending. This particular sculpture is my first major work. The base is mended with copper wire. So this is stacked Baltic plywood, cut on my bandsaw, then stacked it, glued it, and sanded it down. This is turned on my lathe, and then this was a sapling branch. And this was because I had been in museum work for 15 years and hadn't done any art, and I decided to come back to my art. And this was my first piece, coming back to it. And it was very significant to me because I entered it into an exhibition that was curated by J. Carter Brown, permanent director of the National Gallery, and I thought, wow, if only I can get into that exhibit. Well, not only did I get in, but he gave me an award for sculpture mixed media. And, you know, that, I knew that this could not be the only sculpture in the world made by me. So it truly was a mending of my soul, because that's when I started going into my sculpture. And, you know, when you really are passionate or doing your talents, for so long I had been saying no, because it wasn't, you know, being an artist to me wasn't intellectual, being in museums was, and so on. So, you know, when I came back to my art, my life changed. It was just an amazing thing, what's happened what's happened as a result of doing my art. So the next slides show a different approach, where I turn a sphere on the lathe. And this actually happened to be somebody who had made a clamshell with this maple, and he left all the tool marks on there. And he came to me and he said, Lynda, I have no idea what to do with this, but I'm sure you can figure out what to do with it. And so it sat on my table for a long time, and it fell on the floor and broke, and all these wonderful jagged edges you know, revealed themselves to me. And then I just kind of put the two together, and it works. It works. And this is significant to me too, because it opened me to exhibiting internationally. It was in the Arts and Embassy program in the U.S. Embassy at Rome. So the next piece, spiraling up. It's created with a twisted oak branch, which I sliced on my bandsaw. So this is just one branch. And you know, people, even woodworkers say, how did you bend that? Well, no, it's not bent at all. It's all it is sliced. And I struggled with, well, so how do I do this? Because this, if I repeated it horizontally, it would have been a beautiful landscape type piece. But there's something about the lifting up. I like that, bringing people's energy upward. And so that is, and then this tree, the discs came from my neighbor's tree. All of my wood is from my one block area and so my husband does do some of the original chainsaw work, and then so these each were squares I took to my friend's lathe, because he has a big lathe and I didn't have that. So I turned all that. You know, now this is called transitional reflections, and it's a huge significance to me as a wood artist. I was asked to create a sculpture from one of the many uprooted trees for new construction. This is where I work. It was a brand new tower, and they had seen my they had seen my first exhibition with Myrtis. They said, "Can you make a sculpture out of one of these trees?" I chose the tree, which I think is right here. That was the tree. I had them cut it and deliver it to my house, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And finally, one of the limitations for myself is I have to be able to pick it up and put it in my van. I can put it into components. So I somehow selected one of these forks, and I don't know what fork in there. And so my husband cut the fork of the tree vertically, and this then goes on top of that. With a half flat joint. So that's the beginning of it. So this is the almond shape form is called a mandorla, and it's significant in that a lot of religions around the world use that form. They use that form for putting in you know, the Virgin Mary. Hinduism uses that form. So I wanted it to be putting it vertically, And just having that idea of going through this form, calling it liminal space. And this is actually a repeated form that I did, and I was playing around with the idea of a mirror, which would then reflect the grain pattern of the wood. So it's hard to see on a picture, but this is 6 feet high, and when you see it in person, and the mirrors have done an amazing thing for this. You could walk up to the piece, and this is the hollow, but because of the way the mirrors are reflecting it, it looks solid. And people are always putting their hands through this piece. They want to walk through the piece. This layering. It is a wonderful piece. I have to admit it. It's really nice. I like it. And what was really nice about it was that over 100 people contributed money to purchase this piece. So it's permanent, permanently in the atrium of that building. It's Goodwin House, Bailey's Crossroads. It's a retirement community in Falls Church. They've got a very extensive art program. I'm in charge of the art program there, and we have a beautiful gallery. And so, yeah, it's very nice to have it where I work. Folks are always curious about my process. For me, the creation of a sculpture is always intuitive. It starts with nature. So I always slice the piece in some way. I want to see what's inside, what's outside. Well, it's obvious what's outside. It's the inside that I don't know what's going to be. Then I explore with constructed forms. And I always try to, so that particular piece is, the wonderful fungus on this birch. And so the geometric form, the rectangle, is made out of black walnut, which kind of is I put black walnut just about in every piece of mine. So that's just one of the things I try to do, try to create a geometric form as a counterpoint to that natural form. Oh, I forgot to continue. Okay, this piece is not in the exhibit. But again, here's the turn form, and this is on that oak log that I constructed. This is rain catcher. This is a hollow apple. Again, this is from my neighbor. And I did this for an exhibition that the Washington Sculptors Group had, which is called Aquifer. And when as a child in the Andes, the Indians used to carry water down the mountainside with a wooden trough. So I immediately started with that. This is the root system. So there's kind of a playfulness with this form. I used copper tubing representing the contemporary way of carrying water, ancient way, and then the vessel, ceramic vessel being ancient. And this is a recent piece, Gnosis. This is I found this in Alexandria on the street. Somebody had just dug up their boxwood bush, and it was just this beautiful energy that was shooting out of this root system. And so I sandblasted it, and so it's underneath is the very white underneath part of the bark, and then again black walnut with the form kind of at a triangular, bringing people's energy or eyes up to that natural, the wildness of nature there. And this is my last piece that I've done, and again, this is slicing the burled maple, opening it up, and saying what's inside. And so anyway, that is, the one more thing. I was selected for a book called Green Tree, Trees, Roots, and Leaves, and it's being published, and it will come out this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And I'm also very honored
honored to have an opportunity to show with Lynda in this absolutely gorgeous gallery that Myrtis has. And I also have to say what a wonderful tea she puts on and how beautifully it's arranged with all the different plates and things to eat.
Yeah, let's let you know, all the tea stuff, that's part of Myrtis. Myrtis collects teapots and cups. So what you see on the tables is she's sharing her collection with you of her tea stuff.
Anyway, it looks wonderful. I thought that was a lovely visual to come into before looking at the art and hearing all this stuff. Since Alex covered my educational background, more or less, I'll just hop right into how I became an artist. I've always, in fact, done art, and I always wanted to do it. I didn't really want to do anything else, and I've been very fortunate to be able to really devote most of my time to doing that. So I was trained as a painter. Actually started with collage in the 80s as a way of trying to get over a terrible art block that was producing nothing except a great deal of frustration. Canvases ripped off the stretcher bars and thrown out, etc., etc. Nasty time all around. Anyway, it was with great delight that I learned that collage, you can just move it all around. If you don't like it, you can just take it and pick it up and shake it out, start all over again, and you really don't have to make any firm decisions until you come to gluing it down. That it's pretty stable. But I've actually gone back and taken work and looked at it and said, you know, I like the pieces in here, but let's do something else with them, and take it apart and just use it again in some fashion. Then I think it was in the early 2000s. A neighbor of mine came up to my door with a large plastic bag, and he said, I have all these cigar boxes that I was going to do something with, but I couldn't find out, you know, what it was going to be. And would you like those? And I thought, oh boy, yes, I like those, and thank you very much. So that was really the start of this particular series that I've presented here. The cigar boxes are marvelous containers. I mean, that's what I saw them as. And I know that they've been even used for such things as purses, that some people have taken them to that height, not only as an art form, but in monetary value. I understand, you know, for several $1,000s you can purchase some of these wonderful cigar box purses. However, I haven't seen them. I've just heard about them, and that stuck in my mind because I thought that was a rather relevant fact. Now, I wanted to do a little bit of talking about what I know about the creative process. Now, I know that, and I listened to what Lynda had to say about what she does with undressing the trees, and how she comes to make what she's making. And in many respects, I think we have a similar form of working. For me, it's really about process. It's about having physical things to actually work with. As with the collage, that's where I really learned how wonderful it was for this person to have something that I could bend to my will much more easily than drawing or painting or any form. And that was such a major step for me in what I was going to produce. So I've always been a collector of stuff, lots of junk, you know, gifts from the sea, shells, pieces of coral, sticks, stones, even sticks and stones, that sort of thing. And I brought some things that I have collected, and also some papers I have made, and some of the other items that I've used in these boxes. And I'd like to pass a box around that has this stuff in it, just so you can kind of feel it and look at it and think about playing with it. That's really the thing. So. I did want to show you a couple of things in here. Now, I'll talk about where I get a lot of my things, but this is what you sort of can say is repurposing, and they're labeled. And they're tied up with a kind of something you can buy at Michael's, which it looks like something you can bind things with. It's a wire, but it's wrapped, so it probably belongs in their foliage department for all their bouquet displays and this sort of thing. But most of this that has been purchased, like eggs, everybody wants to know where I get the eggs from. But you can see how they have been, I'm not using them the way they're intended, in other words. So I'm doing other things. This is a doll's head, but it makes a perfect eye, for instance. Okay, and then there's some papers in here that some of these works have in them. And this is just wonderful fun with paper. You can pick it up and look at it. And there, where there's writing, there's a piece there that has writing on it. And the way you can get what things you can get out of actually just writing on a piece of paper. But then these are all Japanese papers, which have the advantage of whenever paint or ink you put on them, it all goes all the way through. They're not sized. So what you have on the one side will be different from what you have on the other side. And then a lot of them have been worked over with iridescent oil stick. But shall I just pass this down? You can finger them to your heart's delight. All right, this one, these two, actually they're sitting right here in their reality. I wanted to talk about the containers, how I've come to look at them. Let me start back one further step. In doing these, with taking all this lovely junk and cigar boxes, it's a sort of a dialogue with the material. And each one of these things, the cigar boxes almost have suggested to me, or will suggest to me, different things to do with them. For instance, putting legs on them, then adding these two that are up here come out for me as some platforms that you, of course, not at quite this scale, but I can imagine some ancient peoples using platforms that they could put together with what they could find for their sacrifices to propitiate the gods. That was a very important sort of thing. I mean, we do it in different ways, but I like the old ways better, unless it involves killing or eating. That's sort of hard to. That's sort of hard to think about in this day and age. I mean, we do enough of it anyway in the whole wide world, but we put a different name on it. Not any better. So anyway, these two are, I think, the most obvious ones that represent the platform or even altar kind of concept. And a lot of these things come from my interest in ceremonies and rituals of different natures. Some that I think I would love to invent on my own. But it's sort of fun to imagine when I'm working with this, what people could do with this, or what someone could do with this. So I find it adds to what I'm doing. when I'm working with the work. It kind of helps to direct me in producing it. And also there's another factor which I didn't understand for a long time. One of the artists who is a very well-known painter, whose name, of course, I cannot remember at this point. She said while she was doing her work, "It is the blue leading me, and then I'm leading the blue." In other words, the work is telling her what to do, and she's telling it what to do. And it's this dialogue that I'm trying to talk about. And I don't know how else to explain it, except one more explanation would be when a writer talks about his characters taking over the story and almost writing it for him. Well, after a certain point, a lot of these things do this. So let's go on to the right way. Yes. All right, now I want to talk about, too, the idea of the container where it's a double box, and how you have to think about relating what's in the top to what's in the bottom. So those two parts can have a dialogue also. So in this one, for instance, I tried to reference the bird, which is producing the eggs in the nest, and whenever I can, I like to introduce some bones just for the suggestion of this cycle of life that I think these are all about. And so all of them are really, in some way or another, about that, and the kind of the nest that we all have or make of our own, in our own homes, for instance. And in these two pieces, I wanted to talk about another part of thinking about when you're doing a body of work that you want to show. I got to a point where all of these things were very small, and I really wanted to change the scale. And I thought, well, how am I going to do this with a very small box? So this really was the first time that I tried this, by putting a box on top of a long pole. Now that's really very straightforward, and you think it would be very easy to come across, but it didn't cross my mind until really almost to the end of making this whole series. And this one, there was a specific place that I wanted to show this piece, and I could feel, I had in my mind's eye and how it came to be that way, I don't know. But I had purchased a wreath, a grass wreath at Michael's again. I didn't know what I was going to use it for, but it was on sale, so being someone who likes to buy on sale, I bought it. And I knew that it'll feature somewhere. Anyway, that became the base for this piece that's up here, up in here. Then, from the backyard, there was a very nasty grapevine growing in some of my trees. And when I pulled that down, I thought, I know exactly where this is going to go. And that's where it went. And I'm very fortunate to have a colleague who is excellent at making installations become reality. Because I had no idea how this was going to go up. I had some ideas of how you could do it, but I relied on him to actually install it securely. And so I have to say, without him, that wouldn't be here. But it was the only piece that I did have in my mind that I couldn't do in my own studio, because my studio only has a 7.5-foot ceiling. That's taller. And it was wonderful to see it here in the way I thought it was going to look, and it did. Here it is. This is one of the last pieces that I did for the show, and it involved something that I had sort of stayed away from previously, and that was structuring a piece out of a number of boxes. Because I wasn't really sure that I could handle that, either structurally or if I make it interesting enough to have that sort of, oh, that's a nice piece feeling to it. Anyway, I found that I had a few boxes that went together but were not perfect fits. And they were interesting. They were different in size and a little different in shape and interiors. And I worked at cleaning them up because a lot of these boxes are painted, and I strip them down and then do a lot of sanding and sort of adjusting them so they come out to be square, and they had to be somewhat square to fit into this sort of thing. But then I found I did have to use a number of shims in order to get them to make a straight line vertically so that I could put a sort of a casing around them. And then it was actually a lot of fun, I discovered, to try to find the appropriate pieces that would relate to each other so that you would look at the varying levels in different ways, that these are different ways of containing these objects. And then finishing the outside so that it looked like a sleek piece from the side and something that demanded much more attention from the front. And that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Does anybody have any questions for the artists? Any questions at all? Because I have a couple of, we'll start here. I'm going to turn this one side and go over there. Just pass that around.
I have a quick question for Lynda. What year did you do the piece that you said was your first piece after you went back to art?
1998.
1998? And coincidentally, they are cutting down every tree along the street of my development right now. And it's killing me to see that. Most of them are Bradford pears, and so they, in a big wind, they kind of just tilt, and a branch will come off, and it's always in the street. So I'm sure that's why they're doing that. Not all of them are Bradford pears, but they have, they come and they cut them down, and then they leave the logs on the street, and then another crew will come the next day to pick up the logs, and then another crew will come within the week to grind up the stump. Yeah. And it's really killing me because, the prettiest streets are tree-lined streets. Yeah. But if you want to pick up some.
Where is that?
In Woodstream. I'm in Lanham off of Greenbelt Road.
Oh, okay.
I can give you my information.
Bradford pear.
Yeah, they've marked the trees so that, you can tell when they're coming down. I mean, at least 100 have been taken down already.
Oh, wow.
It's terrible. It's horrible, but it would be great to see them, reincarnated. There's a connection I have to each of you. My mother went to Hunter College, and Janet, you said you went to Cornell?
I did some classes at Cornell.
Classes? Okay. That's my alma mater.
Oh, yes.
Anybody else? Well, I have a question. Again, it goes back to the titles, of the show, of the pieces in the show. Spiraling up. I believe you had a piece called Exuberance. You have a lot of pieces that have a lot of spiritual titles to it, and I thought it'd be great if you could speak on where you come up with the titles for the pieces.
For exuberance, it's a small piece, but I call it exuberance because of the texture that was created. If I could bring that right here to see.
Okay.
See. But this is the nature story of the insects or beetles, whatever, created the texture that we as humans could never create that texture. So it's very exuberantly made. Right? So this was an apple tree that somebody gave me. So it was, this actually was not in my neighborhood, but a friend gave me the wood.
Back.
And the other titles, I guess they are a spiritual nature in that, like this is called Open Book, and you know, I'm inviting people to look at the forces of nature, what nature has done, even the cracks in the. Apparently that was a branch coming off there, and so that crack right there. And beckoning. You can see that I'm asking, you know, that dogwood branch that I sliced in the bandsaw, and when I repeated it, reminded me of, you know, when you go down, you could drive down the road and you can see the arches of trees and so on, and so it just felt like, and then the stairs going up, I was beckoning people to the mystery of trees.
And
the very end piece is called Beacon, because again, that's a burled maple that was from my backyard, and I gold gilded the burl, and then I created, and that's a black walnut base there, and I created there's lights underneath the soffit there, so you know, hit on there. Again, beacon, it was like bringing people to this piece of nature.
all right, Janet. Because Janet, one thing about Janet's pieces is they're all called, well, at least the pieces that we have in the show, are all called, begin with the word nest. We have nest, you know, 23, nest 37. This is the mother load because it's just called nest. That is the nest of nest. And it's interesting because you cannot, I found myself mixing pieces more than I would with pieces that had different names and different looks, because you had to really focus on the meaning of what is nest 22 versus nest 27? You know, and you actually have to think about it, which forces you to actually look at the work different. Because I just couldn't casually say, oh, that's nest, put it here. That's nest, put it here. I had to actually look at the Roman numerals that you put on there, which I remember that from 3rd grade. So, if you could speak on that about, you know, the prefix of the word nest and everything.
Oh, you caught me out. Well, I find it very difficult to give titles to any of my work, and I usually work in a series. And I like to think of the series as a series rather than a grouping of just a number of separate pieces, because they come about serially, truly. You do one and I'm not going to leave that, I'm going to do another, and then, well, that suggests another, and then those 3, you go on to another, and then you want to change your scale a little bit, or you want to do something that's on legs or on the wall, but it's still the same series. And I couldn't think of enough names to cover all those nests. That's my answer.
How many are in the
So it's
series?
said.
How many are in the series?
The last number here is 37. I have to tell you, I think I skipped a whole decade of numbers inadvertently. So I think there's probably closer to, well, there are 18 pieces here, and I've made I've made a number of nests with these boxes. So that there are a lot of nests. A lot of nests. There you go.
Anybody else have any other questions? Yeah. Hang on 1 second, piece of camera.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't really have a question, but I have a comment. And I've been listening to what the ladies are saying, and it, to me, represents life and what we as collectors do. You have the nest, which represents our homes, and we're constantly picking up stuff like birds do and putting them in our homes, and they come from all facets. And here's this wood, which is one component that they may put in. So it's like a cycle of life. We're adjusting and readjusting our nest throughout our lives, and the sculptures represent things that we could bring in, bring into our lives. Like, you know, a number of people have been talking about what they would like to buy, you know, around here. So it's just reflective to me of what collectors do and what we do in life.
Rose?
Well, I was intrigued by the hand. It's nest number 30, but I'm going to name it myself. And I think we had a conversation about it, and I think that it's a very powerful piece, yet a very inviting piece. It's a hand that is extended, that's open, with a very delicate egg in the hand. And the hand represents strength to me because it's a black hand with a delicate piece that says, I am strong, you are delicate, and I'm going to protect you. And I saw it before today, and when I saw it, I said, I don't know what all this means, but I know what it means to me. And when we talked about it, Janet, you said, well, it's a mannequin's hand, and so now I know where the hand came from and the whole history behind it. So it's a very powerful piece to me, but yet delicate in a way, in a sense. And I'm the proud owner of that hand.
Well, thank you for, I think, christening that one with a wonderful description, and I really like it. I hadn't thought of it in the manner in which you described it, but now it means a lot more to me.
I'll take good care of it.
Thank you. I'm sure you will.
All right, well, folks, I'm so glad everybody had a chance to come out and enjoy, and I hope Myrtis is here next time. Smooth things out a little bit.
You did a great job.
I'll let her know when I go upstairs. Anyway, so look at the art and take your time. I'm not in a hurry to shut this down because it just means clean up for me. So take your time.
Thank you.